Implementing device-centric strategies for the modern workplace. To give a little bit of background about Wandera, what we do is we help to secure and control your mobile data usage, which is becoming more important for businesses as more things become more mobile and we move away from traditional PCs. So, first of all, what is a device-centric security strategy? Well, basically it's the opposite of perimeter security or network security, where permissions are reliant on the network that you're connected to or your location. So for example, if you're in the office or if you're connected to a VPN, then you can access your local intranet, but if you're in a Starbucks or at an airport, you can't for security reasons. And that's the way that many policies or many security policies operate now. And until recently, it's how even mobile security policies have operated. And as we move more services and more resources into the cloud, these kind of security policies just don't work, because the point of giving a mobile device to your employee is to help them to work flexibly, to help them to be able to access content wherever they are. So they could be at home, they could be on a train, they could be at an airport, in a Starbucks, which is just next door, and it would be quite detrimental to their productivity to say you have to be connected to a VPN at all times, or you have to be in the office to be able to do your work. But the problem with this kind of policy is that if you don't know what network they're joined to, how can you be assured that they are secure, that none of your corporate information is going to be at risk? And this is one of the big questions when it comes to defining a device-centric security policy, and this is what I'm going to talk about today. So some of you might have seen this, but in 2016, Google, some security engineers at Google created a paper where they talk specifically around device-centric security. So instead of having the perimeter security, what they do is they get lots of information from the devices that you're using. So it could be a mobile device, it could be a laptop, whatever it is, and they are constantly getting information from that device. So what operating system is it? Are they up to date with all of their patches? Who is the device assigned to? And as you can see there, that gives them a lot of visibility into what's going on that device. And dependent on that visibility, it's then assigned to a trust inferer, which gives a level of trust based on the information that it gathers from that device. So for example, you might have access to a financial database or some sensitive information if you have the highest level of trust that Google determines. And so it does this for all of its applications, all of its infrastructure, all of the services that they have at Google. So for example, if you've got someone quite high up in the organization, they might normally have access to a financial database. But if this particular laptop assigned to this user is missing a patch that it needs, then that trust level will go down a couple of pegs, and it will still be able to access less secure documentation or less secure services, but it won't be able to access that secure information. And this applies to, like I say, every part of Google's infrastructure, to make sure that there is a level of security that they abide by, and to make sure that no corporate data is lost. Now, this kind of solution is very, very difficult to achieve unless you've got the type of visibility that Google will have. And the two kind of places where businesses will fall down when it comes to implementing this kind of structure is, firstly, not being aware of all the types of risks that could apply to your devices. And so you could miss out a whole risk factor. Or not having enough information, and then you get a lot of false positives. So this is something that a lot of businesses are looking into, and for mobile, there's a lot to consider. The reason why mobile is so important now is because the amount of data that we're sharing on mobile devices is growing, and it's actually exceeding the amount of data that we would use on traditional PCs. So 57% of corporate internet is now used over mobile. So from a security perspective, it's now the time to make sure that we have a device-centric security policy and to move away from that perimeter security or that network security, because mobile devices are connecting to hundreds of Wi-Fi hotspots every year. And like we said, we want to make sure that having a mobile device is allowing your users to be flexible and allowing them to be productive and also convenient as well to access all of that information. So what are the risk vectors to look for when it comes to mobile devices? I think it can be split into 4 different areas. So firstly, data usage. We find that over 50% of data usage on corporate issued mobile devices is still on personal applications. And that's potentially due to the type of applications that are personal. There's a lot of video content, Instagram, for example, especially with the features that help to improve the user experience, like you not having to press play to load a video, it loads up automatically. That uses more data than a site that has a lot of text on it. And so it's about setting those boundaries, what's acceptable for your business and what's not. Probably more worrying is the amount of unapproved usage that happens on corporate issued devices. So 1 in 7 users access inappropriate content on their corporate device every week. So if we look at this room, there's probably about 30 people in here, so just over 4 of you are accessing pornography at some point on your work devices. We won't point them out. But the reason this happens is because if you're on your PC, you will have policies in place to block this content. And we've been monitored and we have content filtering on our PCs. We've had it the whole time. Whereas with mobile devices, the mobile landscape has changed a lot in a relatively short space of time. 10 years ago, most companies were using BlackBerry and all they did was access email, and BlackBerry was inherently secure. Whereas now it's the users saying, I want to use an iOS device, I want to use an Android device, Windows 10. They're probably not saying they want to use Windows 10, but it is out there. And they want to have access to the millions of different applications that are out there. If something is blocked on their computer, the first thing they will do is try and access it on their mobile device. You might have a UEM, EMM, MDM, whatever acronym you want to use, that blocks the application. The next thing they'll do is go straight to the browser and access the site from there. You might have restricted the browser, but that's quite difficult now because a lot of applications have their own browser. In fact, I was talking to a company recently that had tried to lock down their devices by restricting the number of applications, but they did allow Google Maps because they didn't want their users to get lost. What users were doing is going into Google Maps and using the browser in Google Maps to go onto Instagram and Tinder and all of those other lovely sites. So unapproved usage is a big problem for a lot of businesses, and now they're looking at policies to enforce an acceptable usage policy to mobile. And that policy will be different from PCs because the way that we interact with our mobile devices is quite different. Shadow IT, another big issue. If you've got a device, most corporate devices have a mixture of business and personal content on them, and you probably want that. You're not going to restrict your users to just access business content. But there's potentially a situation where you could have OneDrive for your business information, but that user could also have their personal Dropbox account on the same device. If that's the case, you run the risk of someone transferring corporate information into their personal Dropbox account. And lastly, in secure applications, we've probably all heard about the BA app leaking personal information. They've updated their app 10 times this year, and every time it's updated, they've forgotten to encrypt something. So the first time it was their username, the second time it was the password, their credit card details. It's not just VA. We find 1 in 25 applications leak personal information. And like I say, it could be a username or a password or your location, but we find a huge number of applications that leak your full credit card information. So the 16-digit number, the CVV number, it's all out there unencrypted. So let's all go back to carrier pigeons, so it's a much safer environment. And it's also a problem for GDPR if you've got these insecure applications. Now, when I talk to a lot of customers, some of them say, "Oh, I've got Apple. I'm completely immune from malware. There's no threats." I'm glad you're laughing, as opposed to going, "Yeah, that's right, isn't it?" Well, these are the kind of attack vectors that we're looking for mobile. Firstly, phishing. Now, many of you will have email phishing technologies that stop people from answering emails from princes in Nigeria saying they've got millions of pounds to give to you. But with mobile, 81% of phishing attacks happen outside of email. So it's in SMSs or on WhatsApp or on your website, and email phishing technology will not be able to detect those kind of things. Now, the SMS phishing attacks are especially clever because I'm sure you can see on your phone, you can send text messages that say they're from a person that's not in your contacts. So I could send a phishing text that says it's from HSBC or says it's from Microsoft, telling my user to update their Office 365 credentials. All that user needs to do is click on the link, and then they're putting in their username and password on a page that looks exactly like the Microsoft page. Again, an issue with mobile is the screen's so small, so you don't always see the full address of the site that you're going to. So the beginning of the URL could say Microsoft.com, but after that you can't see that it says .something else, and it's this huge long URL that the user won't see. Also, we're finding an increase in, you can now get URLs that have emojis in them. So what the hackers are using is the white box emoji. So it looks blank. So it looks like it says apple.com, but actually after the .com, there's lots of white emojis. So you're not safe, guys. That's basically the message that I'm trying to say. And the problem with mobile is that the easiest way to get into your mobile device is to trick the user, and there's so many ways to do that. Phishing is a number one example. Also, joining risky Wi-Fi hotspots. Users don't care about security for Wi-Fi. They're just looking to get onto some free internet, so they will bypass any security features. We used to have a feature that would just alert users to say, "You're joined to a risky Wi-Fi hotspot. Are you sure you want to join?" But the number of people that just joined anyway was astronomical. So now we have some additional features, which I'll talk about later.
So you're fired as soon as
Yes. Well, this is, it brings up a good point. It's, there isn't a security policy for mobile in some instances. So educating the users is really important. You know, we have a lot of customers that they have a user that goes to Saudi Arabia where it's £10 a megabyte, and they rack up a huge bill because they let their kids watch Peppa Pig on the iPad, because there wasn't a mobile policy, you can't really say anything, even though it should be obvious. Please don't do that in that country. Whereas education is a key piece of the solution to make sure that people understand where their data is going, how much data they're using, and that they're blocked from any kind of security content. Cryptojacking. Who's heard of cryptojacking? So cryptojacking is the unauthorized use of your CPU to mine cryptocurrencies. So this can either be through some malware that you've downloaded, or if the website has been hijacked, then it does it in the background. The problem again with mobile is that if you go to this site, unbeknownst to you, you're mining cryptocurrency for a hacker. And rather than it being malware, it's also really annoying because if you leave it running on your phone for an extended period, your phone gets really hot. And if you left it for a couple of hours, it would completely brick your phone. So this £1,000 device is now completely unusable because a hacker has been mining cryptocurrency in the background. Some of you might have already deployed a UEM solution, or EMM, like I say, so something like a VMware or Intune to manage the device. And they are very good at what they do. They're managing the device. So if your phone gets lost, if your phone gets stolen, you can use the UEM to remote wipe that device or quarantine that device. The next level of that is mobile threat defense. So looking at the threats within your applications, looking at the network threats, and looking at web threats to ensure that that data is secure. But what MTD doesn't do is look in real time at your data. So it doesn't give you that full visibility into your data usage. So in order to have a device-centric strategy, you need to have that real-time visibility. Otherwise, you're going to miss out key areas. Now, I hope someone's placing bets on how many times Gartner is going to be mentioned in today's presentations, but I've obviously got one as well. Gartner predicts that the mobile security marketplace is going to grow 3 times by 2020, and they specify that it's very important to have mobile threat defense tools, even for iOS, because it doesn't matter what platform you're on, you're still susceptible to threats. Now, many businesses will have visibility and security using solutions like Zscaler or a Cisco firewall, and that's very good for your network security. But with mobile, most of the traffic, 90% of the traffic, is over cellular or public Wi-Fi or home Wi-Fi, so it won't be covered by your traditional levels of security, which is why UEM and MTD is very important for a device-centric strategy. The way that Wandera works is we firstly give you visibility for not only your applications, but also for all of your browser traffic. So if you've got those sneaky users that are trying to access Instagram via your Google Maps browser, we will be able to see that. It also is aware of the network that you're joining. So is it over cellular? Is it over Wi-Fi? Is that Wi-Fi secure? And you can set trusted Wi-Fis. And it's also context aware. So who is the user? What country are they in? What level of access should they have? And I wanted to give some examples of where this comes into use. So one of our customers is Frontier Airlines. Instead of having a paper checklist at the beginning of each flight that they have to tick off, everything is now done on a tablet, so they're becoming more mobile. But over some areas, they have a specific tariff. I can't remember what it's called exactly. It's something to do with the altitude that sort of clocks in when it reaches a certain altitude. And for that network, it's something like £8 a megabyte, so it's quite expensive. So what we have is the ability to set policies based on altitude, and we also have a maritime recognition as well, because there is a maritime tariff too that's very expensive. So we can see when you get to that level and then set a specific policy based on that. So as soon as you hit that level, because it's so expensive to use data, you can only access business critical sites. Otherwise, everything else is restricted until you get back down to ground level, and then your traffic is more lenient. This one is about conditional access. So if your device is getting a lot of threats, we will block them in real time. But if we recognize that it's getting an increasing number of threats, there might be something wrong with the device. And so until you remediate that device, you will not be able to access business critical sites.
Would that include saying yes to the risky Wi-Fi network?
So you've got my slides. So this is
Or you just send a message to their boss saying...
Well, we can do something better, basically. Instead of just sending an alert to the user to say, you're in a public Wi-Fi that is insecure, please don't access it, we recognize that users will ignore those requests. So what we will do is we will launch something called fail-safe encryption that launches a lightweight VPN, so they can still access the internet and they can still access the information that they need, but they'll do it over a secure connection rather than just using the public Wi-Fi.
Still have the user experience of connecting to their works if they're not blocked?
Yes, they won't be blocked, no. And even the domain properties matter. So we find a number of threats happen on sites that look legitimate. So it could be HSBC or Apple ID is a popular one. So what we do with our intelligence engine is we look at the URL properties, we look at the registrant details, all of these different microservices in real time. So looking at the text on similar domains and making sure the font is the same, the color scheme is the same. And if something isn't right, we can detect it as a real-time or a zero-day phishing threat. And to give you an idea of this, so as I said, Apple ID is a popular one, and with a mobile device, it's very easy to do because the screen's so small, it doesn't have many clickable links. We found the threat immediately. It took Google to find it, 4 hours to find it, Fortinet 16 hours to find it, and then other vendors, they didn't find it at all. So that's why it's important to have something that's sitting in the path of the data that's able to scan in real time, otherwise you just won't pick up these kind of threats. Now, who heard about this story? It was in the news a few weeks ago. Basically, there was a lawyer, and you know law firms in London, they're all quite near each other. There was a lawyer on his work device browsing some adult content in the middle of the day. A rival law firm, which was across the way, could see that they were browsing some adult content and filmed him on his mobile device and used it to report him to the business. And that partner was suspended. Now, this is because there was no policy for accessing that content on a mobile device. And rather than being embarrassing, it is quite important for brand reputation. We've had a customer who is a utilities customer that had a similar issue. They were in a van, name of the company on the side of the van, watching some adult content. Someone looked at the back of the van, it says, "How's my driving?" Well, reported him. And now they have a policy in place to make sure that people aren't browsing that kind of content on a work-issued laptop during the day. And then lastly, we have the ability for Windows 10 laptops to say, what is the device, what connection are they joined to, is it cellular and Wi-Fi, and based on that, what kind of controls are they allowed to have. We can also do this by country as well, so you might be quite lenient with your data as long as it's secure in the EU, but as soon as you go outside of the EU to places like the US, or I know the Middle East is very expensive, Oman, Cuba I think has one carrier, and so they charge extortionate amounts for data if you go there. Or especially at this time of year when people are going on Christmas holidays and they go skiing, if you ski into Andorra, it's very expensive to use data there. So we get a lot of customers that come back with high bills unless they set these kind of controls there too. So I'll just power through this because I recognise we're short on time. The way that Wandera does this is we have an application that you install on the device. And the good thing about the application is that it gives that user visibility. So the user can see how much data they're using, what threats we found on their devices. It helps them to police their own activity. It also means that if you're in the IT team, they know that you can see what they're doing too. So they might not browse adult content or Tinder on their work-issued device. That application installs an APM profile, which acts as a proxy. So it's a gateway sitting in the path of the data. And that means that we can provide real-time information about your data usage wherever you are in the world. We're not reliant on any carrier, and I know for some carriers it can take a couple of days or even a couple of weeks to get roaming information back. We don't have that problem because your traffic comes through to us wherever you are, and that means that not only can the user get information about their data usage, but as an administrator you can see exactly where your data usage is. You can see what data is being accessed, and you can prevent any data leaks. So you can stop people from using sites that leak credit card information, for example. We have GDPR reports in the portal, so you can see where your vulnerabilities are and action them straight away. The service integrates with any SIEM system that you're using, like Splunk or QRadar, and you can. We also integrate with UEM solutions as well, so you can push out the app and the profile from your UEM, which helps with the device management. I've mentioned Miriam already. Miriam is the name of our intelligence engine, and she is processing billions of data inputs every day from all of the traffic that we see from our customers around the world. From that data, she's doing a lot of microservices. So as we said before, looking at the classifications of your URLs, looking to see if there are any vulnerabilities in the sites or apps that you're going to. And doing this, she can not only protect you against known threats, but also zero-day threats. And it's very important to have something that's looking at zero-day threats for your mobile devices, because a new phishing attack is released every 20 seconds. And like I said, it's not usually through email or mobile, it's through SMS, it's through WhatsApp. The only way to stop these kind of threats is if you've got something that's sitting at the gateway level on your mobile devices, as opposed to being an app-only threat defense solution. So this is our vision: intelligent protection and data-driven insight for every connected device. And I think one of the things that you can take away from this is just to see how you fare when it comes to doing a device-centric checklist. So do you give access outside of your corporate perimeter? If you have mobile devices within your business, I'm sure you do this. Have you invested in a UEM solution or a mobile threat defense solution to secure your device and secure the data on your device? Do you have enough visibility to access trust levels? And do you have enough visibility and control to enforce those policies? If you're keen to find out more, we're downstairs. You can have a look at our portal. Like I said, my name's Suzanne, and thank you all for listening.